We have Director Siatini, and we have the PSST Ministry of Finance. I'm mentioning institutions and titles. The faces may differ, but we'll be in there to run these things. We'll also have a keynote and a few other things as you'll see them. But for now, I want to invite you to stand so that we can officially start with the anthems for the day. Can we have the anthems? DJ? Which is okay. Who has a good voice? We lay our future in thy hand. United, free for liberty, together we'll always stand. Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe uishi kwa amani, tuizike na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu zote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Thank you. You may resume your seats. And congratulations for going over that. It's not easy for many. I want to invite my friend Kafero to open up this on behalf of the Executive Director Siatini Jane Nalonga, who is not able to be with us in this particular meeting.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fred Muhumuza. The Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga, the guest of honor and keynote speaker, Ms. Annette Semwemba, Deputy Secretary General in charge of Customs, Trade and Monetary Affairs, East African Community Secretariat, Mr. Ramadhan Govi, Permanent Secretary and Secretary to the Treasurer, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, who will be represented by Mr. Moses Kagwa, the Acting Director, Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Mr. John Musinguzi, Commissioner General, Uganda Revenue Authority, represented by Ms. Nasanga Allen, Assistant Commissioner, Strategy and Risk Management, Uganda Revenue Authority, Ms. Anna Namboze, Country Director, Trademark Africa for Uganda and South Sudan, Honorable Members of Parliament, including Honorable Ongatho Emmanuel Joe, Member of Parliament, Jonam, Honorable Etuka Isaac, Jokino Apamadi constituents, and other members of Parliament who may have arrived before I was notified. National Budget Month partners represented here, representatives of the civil society fraternity, the media fraternity, development partners, distinguished stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen, Good morning, habari ziani, asubuhi wenzangu wa Afrika Mashariki. Good morning, my fellow East Africans. My name is Herbert Kafero, Programs Manager, Siatini. Siatini is Southern and Eastern Africa Trade Information and Negotiations Institute. And I bring you greetings from my Executive Director, Ms. Jane Nalunga. This EAC post-budget dialogue for financial year 2025-2026 is not only a critical component of Uganda's National Budget Month activities, but it is also a vital platform for fostering transparency, accountability, and constructive regional dialogue. We extend our sincere appreciation to the budget transparency partners and all the institutions and partners that we work with as part of this important initiative. We also recognize that a number of other partners have joined us to make this event a success, including NTV Uganda and other digital creators and content creators, to ensure that even those that are online get the message and join the conversation. We convene at a critical juncture in the EAC's integration and development journey. The global environment remains deeply uncertain, but it is also characterized by shrinking aid budgets, rising geopolitical tensions, climate-induced shocks, and volatile commodity markets. I'm sure those of us in this room have heard about protectionist measures such as the Trump tariffs and others. So that's the kind of global environment we are surrounded with. These dynamics are redefining the development financing landscape, specifically for the East African community. As concessional financing becomes increasingly conditional and donor aid is redirected towards domestic or geopolitical priorities, we must urgently reimagine and reclaim our fiscal space. The reality now is that countries are looking inward. We've heard about America First policy, where America is considering priorities of the Americans first and what they want first before anything else. So countries are increasingly looking inwards, and it's not wrong to look inwards. And as the East African community, it is also high time for us to look at our priorities, our aspirations, where we want to go, how we get there, whom we have to partner with, what kind of partnerships do we need, and something of that like. So it is important that the regional conversation is kick-started in view of the global dynamics and the policy shifts at play. In this context, financing development in East Africa requires a strategic and coordinated shift. Our reliance on external debt and aid is no longer tenable. And instead, the EAC region must strengthen domestic resource mobilization. And at Siatini, we believe domestic resource mobilization is the only sure way of financing development. Because when you have a tax base that is within reach, within your control, you can determine what you can get out of it. And URA will be speaking to the tax revenue targets, because domestic resource mobilization is one of the key priorities, things that government is looking at to finance development. And all of us are contributors to this much needed development. And this entails implementing fair, progressive, and gender-responsive tax policies. It also entails curbing illicit financial flows through improved treaty frameworks and cross-border cooperation. It also may require us to ensure that there is transparency and accountability in public financial management systems. And across the EAC, we are witnessing rising debt burdens. And we will have a number of experts speak to where we are in terms of debt. Are we entrapped in debt, or we have some breathing space? And how are we breathing? So they will let us know with figures, and we will be able to appreciate where we are. And this rising debt burden is severely crowding out critical public investment in education, health, infrastructure, and social protection. It is also undermining our ability to respond to climate crisis and invest in inclusive economic transformation. And despite the EAC's commitment to macroeconomic convergence, fiscal and debt policy misalignment persists, complicating integration and investment efforts. While the EAC Council of Ministers had mandated a review of the 3% fiscal deficit and 50% of public debt thresholds, we must move beyond discussion and get to action. There's been quite a lot of rhetoric around debt sustainability, but it's high time we get to action in terms of addressing the issue of debt. In this regard, we strongly call for a coherent regional fiscal framework that sets harmonized standards for taxation, borrowing, and debt transparency. We also call for public debt management strategies anchored in medium-term fiscal sustainability, in addition to resisting fiscal consolidation that mandates and also undermine policy autonomy and socioeconomic rights. Tax to GDP ratios across the EAC remain below global and regional benchmarks. And experts will speak to the different tax to GDP ratios across the region. But for Uganda, we project to achieve 13.4% in financial year 2025-2026. And this is from a GDP to tax ratio of 12.8% in financial year 2024-2025. And during the first half of the financial year 2024-2025, 420,183 new taxpayers. We may have to stop here for a moment and welcome the Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga, the First Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of East African Community Affairs. Join me with a round of applause in welcoming You are most welcome, the Right Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of East African Community Affairs. We are honored to have you here. The team, could you play the EAC anthem? We could sing along. Yes. I would like to call upon Honorable George Odong, since he's our representative at the East African Legislative Assembly, to lead us into the EAC anthem. We will all sing along, and then we will continue with the remarks. Holy, we lay our future in thy hands. United, free for liberty, together we always stand.
Twaomba unilinde Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tulilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
Thank you so much. You may take your seats. The Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga, the First Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of East African Community Affairs. We are honored to have you here. And I bring you greetings from the Executive Director of Siatini, Ms. Jane Nalunga, who is in Sevilla, Spain, for the 4th Financing for Development Conference. And as Siatini, we strongly believe that as the East African community, we don't operate in a vacuum. We are integrated in the global village. That's why we influence affairs from the subnational, national, regional, that's the EAC level, continental, and global levels, because it matters for us to engage on global policy issues. And Siatini was founded at a time when African third world countries in general were marginalized in global processes, such as the World Trade Organization, ministerial conferences, UN conferences, and the World Bank and IMF discussions. So the impetus under which Siatini was founded is still alive today. That's why the Executive Director is in Sevilla, Spain, for the 4th Financing for Development Conference. Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker, for honoring our invitation. And as the Chief Host, Siatini, in partnership with a number of National Budget Month partners, including Ministry of East African Community Affairs, Ministry of Finance, among other partners, including Uganda Revenue Authority, we are honored and glad to have you. You entered the room at a time when I was giving some remarks, and it was only right for me to stop and the rest of us to welcome you, because you are deeply passionate about the EAC regional integration, and at Siatini, we are behind you, as the saying goes. We are pushing at different fronts in terms of policy analysis, research, and advocacy to ensure that we furnish you and the rest of the other policymakers and actors to make the EAC regional integration work. Because we believe when the EAC regional integration works, we will achieve the vision. We envisioned a people-centered EAC regional integration, private sector-led, but also regional integration where there is more coherence than anything that breaks us apart. And I request Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala-Kadaga to continue with my remarks from where I had stopped. I was speaking to the revenue targets that Uganda Revenue Authority has set, but also how domestic resource mobilization is the only sure way of financing development in view of the policy shifts and the dynamics. We all appreciated what US aid was doing. But when aid was frozen, pending an evaluation of the effectiveness of that aid, we were all quick to say, why now? Not looking inwards to domestic resource mobilization and how we can achieve self-sustainability. Because we cannot depend on the kindness of foreigners and donors. We must have a plan. And that plan has to be rooted within what we believe in, but also we must mobilize people around that plan to ensure that the plan works and everyone is on board. So if it is a vehicle, we need to get everyone onto that vehicle. And we are glad, Right Honorable, to have you. In regards to the revenue targets, during the first half of the financial year 2024-2025, 420,183 new taxpayers were added to the taxpayer register, bringing it to a total of 4,881,983. And Uganda shillings, 59.01 billion, was generated by the new taxpayers for the period of between July to December. And these include 232,063 non-individuals and 4,649,420 individual taxpayers. And this speaks to one thing, that expansion in the tax register in recent years proves that progress is possible. And domestic resource mobilization efforts must be supported to ensure that we realize the targets. And to achieve this, beyond focusing on Uganda, we urge EAC partner states to scale up domestic resource mobilization through progressive tax systems and reforms, curbing illicit financial flows, currently draining an estimated $88.6 billion US annually from Africa. This might also require us to leverage digital tools to expand the tax base and close compliance gaps. There is a saying that the future is green and digital, and we must align as Uganda. Because like I mentioned, we are in a global village. Whatever happens anywhere else, in a way calls us to action. I would like to welcome Mr. Moses Kagwa, the Acting Director, Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, who is representing the Permanent Secretary and Secretary to the Treasury. We are honored to have you, Mr. Moses Kagwa. Thank you for honoring our invitation. And to proceed, at Siatini, we firmly believe that East African countries can trade their way out of poverty and out of debt. But this requires expanding intra-EAC trade, which is still below, reducing trade costs, which are up to 50% and above the global average due to infrastructure bottlenecks and inefficient customs systems. It may also require promoting value-added production, particularly among micro, small, and medium enterprises, which constitute over 80% of employment in Africa. And when we talk about the private sector, we cannot ignore the fact that micro, small, and medium enterprises are the private sector that we pride ourselves in. So we must do everything possible to ensure that beyond surviving, they thrive. And there is a new kid on the block, which is the African Continental Free Trade Area and the Tripartite Free Trade Area, which provide key platforms for this much-needed transformation, but only if national and regional policies are aligned, enabling EAC countries to boost export revenues and manage debt burdens sustainably. To fully leverage the African Continental Free Trade Area and the Tripartite, EAC, COMESA, and SADC, EAC partner states must align key regional policies, including tariff structures, non-tariff barrier elimination schedules, customs and trade facilitation procedures, and tax regimes and digital service taxation. Kenya is a leader in digital service taxation, and Uganda must follow suit and learn from Kenya, and we must speak as a region in terms of digital taxation. And the issue of recurring non-tariff barriers is something that we have to address. And to address this issue, it is important to ratify and effectively implement Article 49 of the EAC Customs Union Protocol, which establishes a framework for identification, elimination, and monitoring of non-tariff barriers to trade within the EAC. We must also harmonize investment codes. We've been talking about, as Siatini, the issue of marketing the EAC as a single investment destination. I think it's high time we get to action in terms of marketing the EAC. And as Siatini, we have undertaken a campaign over the years towards reviewing Uganda's Investment Code Act 2019, which has some gaps in view of the recent developments, global shifts and developments, but also in view of what we want to attain. If we set out to create so many jobs, we cannot achieve that if we don't have the right policy tools. And the Investment Code Act 2019 is one of the right policy tools we could use. We need to have strong provisions on performance requirements so that as we attract investors, we attract quality FDI in strategic sectors, we are keen and we become intentional on performance requirements, creating jobs, and not just jobs, but decent jobs, and then the economy will be vibrant. We can also use the minimum wage in order to tap into, if we have a favorable threshold that falls under the pay as you earn, it means we can get more revenue from the same. So Siatini is raising these issues in good spirit because we believe we need to prosper as a country, we need to prosper as a region, and address the long-standing structural challenges and barriers. And we need to build a more resilient and integrated East African economy. And to build this economy, we recommend that EAC partner states adopt a coordinated fiscal policy framework to reduce debt risk and promote regional policy coherence, strengthen DRM, including broadening the tax base without overburdening vulnerable groups, curbing illicit financial flows, enhancing transparency, reforming public debt management, accelerating regional trade facilitation, promoting inclusive budget processes, and aligning fiscal and climate finance policies. Ladies and gentlemen, the current trajectory of rising debt and narrowing fiscal space is unsustainable. But with collective resolve and coordinated regional action, the EAC can chart a new path anchored in domestic resource sovereignty, transparent governance, fair trade, and inclusive growth. At Siatini, we are committed to working with relevant government institutions, regional bodies, like-minded civil society organizations, private sector actors, and other regional partners to ensure that fiscal and debt policies serve the people and not the creditors. Thank you so much for listening to me. I deliver these remarks on behalf of the Executive Director of Siatini, Ms. Jane Nalunga. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Jane Nalunga. That was Kafero, the representative. Right Honorable Rebecca Litwala Kadaga, the first Deputy Prime Minister. First of all, I want to congratulate you for the flag. That gives me some assurance that there will be some continuity. And as a person from Bunyoro, the links between Bunyoro and Busoga, that speaks volumes for me. The rest we'll understand later. But this means a lot to us. I have two people coming ahead of you. Just make sure the context is well set, but also they should draw the dust of the places. Mr. John Musinguzi, the Commissioner General, Uganda Revenue Authority, is going to be represented by Madam Allen Nasanga, the Assistant Commissioner, Strategy and Risk Management. You are the right person, really, because matters of strategy and risk require people like you. I don't trust men with strategy and risk. But don't tell this to my friend John Musinguzi. He sent the right person for this. You have the floor.
Thank you. The guest of honor, Honorable Kadaga, honorable members of parliament, all government officials and dignitaries present here, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, good morning to you. I bring you greetings from the Commissioner General, Mr. John Musinguzi, who is unable to be here due to other commitments. As already said, my name is Allen Nasanga. I'm the Acting Commissioner for Strategy and Risk Management at Uganda Revenue Authority. Now, by mandate, URA is central to domestic revenue mobilization. And URA mobilizes revenue for national development. Over the years, the absolute amounts collected have been increasing. 10 years ago, in 2013, in financial year 13-14, our net collections were about 8 trillion. Last financial year, we managed to collect 27.3 trillion. That's a growth of over 100%. The targets of URA have also been increasing. This financial year, which ends next Monday, our target is around 31 trillion. And next financial year, we are expected to collect 37. However, the tax to GDP ratio has not grown as fast or as expected. And this has been due to a number of reasons. For example, the large informal sector, which is estimated to be contributing about 50% to the GDP. Then we have smuggling in our porous borders, as well as some administration challenges. Going forward, to mobilize additional revenue, the URA plans to undertake a number of measures, and these include broadening the tax base. By the end of May this financial year, the total number of registered taxpayers on our registers was 5.2 million. Now, compared to the working population, this is still low. So, going forward, we will integrate all our URA systems with other government and MDA systems. Agencies like NERA, URSP, the local governments, and then through data analytics, we will be able to identify the unregistered persons and make sure we register them. We will also improve effectiveness and efficiency of our tax administration through targeted digitalization, risk-based compliance strategies, as well as human capital development. Specifically, we'll continue leveraging the use of technology to improve our efficiency and also to make it easy for our taxpayers. Through automation, we'll simplify our processes of filing and payment. We are developing many mobile applications which are easy because many Ugandans have mobile phones recently. And then we have initiatives like auto return filing to simplify the return filing process. There are also taxpayers who are not aware of their tax obligations or do not know how to ensure they comply. For this, we are going to intensify our outreach and tax education programs to make sure that we avail the knowledge for the Ugandans out there to comply with their tax obligations. There are also sectors that contribute heavily to GDP but very low in taxes. Through data analytics, we are going to review the sector performance and then develop sector-based compliance measures to ensure that each sector contributes a fair share to the revenue. We will improve risk management, and in here we intend to develop like risk rankings, risk profiles for every taxpayer. This will also facilitate the very compliant taxpayers with very good risk rankings, because this will be visible and there will be minimal interruptions or engagements with us once you're deemed compliant. There is also a lot of revenue that sometimes is stuck in tax disputes. So for this, we are going to enhance the alternative dispute resolutions, where we have mediations with the taxpayers. And this is going to be done different from the staff who engage on the front end from domestic taxes, for example. This is a function that is within our legal department. On the customs side, we'll continue strengthening our cargo management, strengthening the valuation controls, including updates to our valuation database. We'll also continue to use the non-intrusive inspection facilities, which facilitate trade. We will continue implementing our zero tolerance to corruption policy to ensure all the collected amount is available. Now, looking into next financial year, we have made a couple of, as we begin the next financial year, I'm pleased to share with you the latest changes in the tax laws. Every desk has copies of this tax amendment booklet. In here, we have the latest changes of the tax laws. And these amendments cover the Income Tax Act, VAT, local excise, stamp duty, and the Tax Procedure Code. These reforms have been designed with the taxpayer in mind. The aim is to reduce the cost and complexity of compliance and doing business, while strengthening the tax administration system. So this is not simply about collecting taxes, but about creating an environment where business can grow and citizens can contribute meaningfully to Uganda's prosperity. I encourage every taxpayer to study these amendments, and the URA team is available to support you and guide you, explain these amendments. Today in the House we moved with, from the custom side, Mr. Elinathan Masiko is around, as well as we have Mr. Michael Masembe and his team from the tax education. So as URA, we are available to explain and sensitize you, support you in complying to these amendments. In the next financial year, we aim to raise about 37 trillion shillings. And I call upon all of you citizens of Uganda to be part of this effort, not just as a civic duty, but in efforts to developing our country. We can build a stronger and more resilient Uganda that is self-reliant amid these reductions in donor funding. Thank you so much.
You can give her another round of clapping. She's done us well. The one thing I know from the president's speech, he said tax without killing the taxpayer. That speaks a lot of things that we are working on, but URA has already been there. You have heard of those dispute resolutions. So the URA has already been on the journey of making sure the taxpayer is prime. The taxes are embedded within the taxpayer being alive. Dead companies don't pay tax. The man who receives the taxes come and represent the PSST. I know that is a docket you can easily handle. You don't need forewarning for a week, just for a minute, and you'll be able to. I've worked with Kagwa since the cows were not yet born.
Thank you, Fred. The Right Honorable First Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for EAC Affairs, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. PSST would have loved to be here today to discuss these issues of regional integration, but he has some other urgent duties which he has been assigned, so he requested me to come here and represent him. For some of you who may doubt that the delegation for today, maybe I give a bit of a background that I was part of the Ugandan team that negotiated the East African Community Customs Union Protocol. I was the leader of the team that negotiated the East African Community Common Market Protocol. And I was a co-leader of the team that negotiated the East African Community Monetary Union Protocol. These days I've delegated this work to some of my younger colleagues because I thought I'd been in EAC issues for a very long time. So there is Mr. Dr. Musisi Albert, Mr. Tunamasiko Francis, and Mr. Samchi Inji. They're the ones who have been handling these issues. But I've been in the background. I still love issues that deal with East Africa. And as we are here today to discuss the East African Community post-budget issues, I wish one to point out that at the presentation of the budget speech, once the Minister of Finance had finish, the president said he had two issues to discuss. And one of them was the East African Federation. And what do we need to consider when we are looking at East African Federation? What are the things that we are looking at? The Baganda was saying that agali awamu gegalume nyama. If you have no teeth in your mouth, you can't really bite the meat. So the unity, strength is in unity, and that's why we're really looking at the community as an institution where we as East Africans can prosper. Because when you look at our GDP, the combined GDP of East Africa, which is about 240 billion. That's less than the GDP of any of the states in the US. Any of the states in the US has a higher GDP than the whole of East Africa. When you look at countries like Norway, it's a small country of 4 million people. It has more GDP than East Africa. So when we are talking about developing this economy as Uganda, moving from the $61.3 billion we are anticipating at the end of this year, and then to the 500 we expect in 2040, that's the tenfold growth strategy. The East African community is very much a central part of this journey. We need to have the market where we are going to sell our products. And we also need to get products from the East African partner states so that all of us can prosper. When we combine our GDP, it looks big. When we combine our population as East Africa, that means that we are getting more as a market. And these are really the whole reasons why we thought it prudent that we really have an integrated East Africa, because we'll have an integrated market. We should have integrated infrastructure. One of the problems we are actually having is infrastructure. But if we can do the projects as East African, then we can get financing for them. We are talking about the standard gauge railway now. Some people thought it was a Kenyan project alone, but we are discussing it among the three partner states. Kenya, when are you moving from Naivasha to Malaba? And then Uganda, you move from Malaba to Kampala. But then when are you moving from Kampala to go to maybe Mirama Hills? And we can take this railway to Rwanda so that the Rwandans can also pick it up and it becomes an East African project. Those are the discussions we are having. We are also, of course, trying to have discussions with the South Sudan. Once we have this, one, the cost of bringing a container from Mombasa to Kampala will reduce by more than 70%. Even the time is also going to reduce. So the cost of doing business in the region is going to reduce significantly. We are talking about electricity. Which countries have electricity, which is the surplus, like Uganda, and how do you sell to the other EAC countries that don't have surplus electricity, the ones with the deficit? So in the budgeting, we are taking this into account. And we are not only doing Ugandan projects, but EAC projects. Then we are also thinking about the roads infrastructure. You know how we have intervened in Congo because we want to export our products from Uganda, from Kenya, from Tanzania to DRC, reducing the cost of doing business. That means that we also improve the welfare of our people. So it's how we are looking at our budgets. How do we, as East Africa, be speaking the same language and having the same philosophy and the same understanding of where our economy should be? However, we have noted also some issues that we need to address. The tariff and non-tariff barriers are not going away as fast as we want. We have had discussions at the regional level on how to remove tariffs and non-tariff barriers. We have succeeded, but not wholly. Those are still big challenges. Recently, Tanzania has introduced an industrial development levy on all goods coming into Tanzania, industrial goods, including goods from Uganda. And in the budget speech, it was very explicit that these tariffs are going to apply to goods originating from the East African community. And this is outrightly against the law and the spirit of the East African Community Treaty and the East African Customs Union. Of course, one of the claims by Tanzania is that Kenya is doing it and it hasn't removed those discriminatory taxes in their laws. So it's something that we have seen. We have also noted that despite a lot of our dialogue with the Republic of Kenya, our milk is not moving freely to Kenya. Sometimes they allow, sometimes they stop it. And these are the things that are actually may affect the full realization of the benefits of the economy. We are in discussions to try and see how to alleviate these issues that are coming in, but it's a problem. The other issue that we noted was the joining or the signing of trade agreements by different partner states, that instead of going and signing these treaties or agreements as a bloc, some countries are doing it alone. And they are offering some tariff preferences which undermine our regional policies. So it is something that we need to continue looking at. There have also been some restrictions on travel. When you go to Zanzibar now, you are required to have a mandatory travel insurance from a boat in Zanzibar, even if you have your own insurance going in. And that is an area that we think is also anti-EAC, that must be looked at. So these are some of the issues, but despite that, we have seen that the East African community has deepened, And the regional agenda is going on. The intra-EAC total trade has grown by 12.1% to US dollars 15.2 billion in 2024 from US dollars 13.8 in 2023. So there's trade going on, which is a good thing within EAC, and we hope that will continue. I wish to stop here for now because I'm supposed also to come back. I don't want to bore you a lot, but thank you so much for listening to me. Okay.
Thank you, Moses Kagwa. It wasn't actually a boring talk. You have only set the pace for the big task of the Right Honorable First Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for East African Affairs has, because it looks like East Africa is moving in different directions. It's no longer East Africa for us. And for Siatini, please remember there is South Sudan and the DRC. We want to see their figures as well, because these are our second biggest trading partners and third after Kenya. That's where our destination of exports go. So ladies and gentlemen, I think it is only in order that I invite the Right Honorable First Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for East African Affairs, who certainly still has work to do. Going by what I've heard from Mr. Kagwa, there is work for you to do in the next term, or even at least to prepare those notes. There's so much work in your office, keeping this house in order. Right Honorable, the floor is yours. And for those of you out there, this is a televised event. I'm only hoping your creditors have not been looking for you, because now they know where to find you. Right Honorable Prime.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And good morning. The members of parliament, both of Uganda and of Yala, the heads of departments who are here, our host, Siatini, a reliable host, by the way, development partners, civil society representatives, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure, as always, to join you in the East African Community Post-Budget Dialogue for financial 2025-2026 under the theme Harmonization of Fiscal and Debt Policies to Boost Total Trade and Investment in the EAC. Let me commend Siatini, together with the EAC Ministry and other stakeholders, for sponsoring, convening this dialogue at a critical juncture in our regional integration journey. I also want to report that on Monday this week, the chairperson of the EAC Council of Ministers, the Honorable Beatrice Askul, Cabinet Secretary for the EAC Republic of Kenya, delivered the budget speech at the virtual plenary of the third session of the Yala Assembly in Tanzania. And the session was virtual because of logistical issues. The Council tabled a proposed EAC budget of USD $109 million. It's under consideration by the General Purpose Committee. The theme is inclusive economic transformation through domestic resource mobilization, resilient strategic investment for job creation, and improved livelihoods. It sets the tone for regional economic governance that is inclusive, sustainable, and anchored in strategic fiscal harmonization. Now, despite persistent global shocks, geopolitical tensions, climate-induced pressures, shifts in global development, and aid, the EAC economy continues to demonstrate resilience. In 2024, our region posted a growth of rate of 5.5%, performing both the global average of 3.3 and the one of sub-Saharan Africa of 4%. The outlook for 2025 is proposed at 5.8%, driven by strong performance in agriculture, construction, and services, supported by prudent macroeconomic policies. In the 2025-26 budget, we agreed that partner states' contribution shall be 67.76%, that's 62%. Development partners at 51%. These are not a very satisfactory area. That's why I mentioned in the beginning that the delivery of the budget this time was virtual, because we have severe constraints in that although we are 8, only 4.5 members are contributing. The others who are still having a free ride, and yet they expect full benefits. The distribution reaffirms the principle for shared responsibility, even as we work to expand domestic resource mobilization within partner states to reduce dependency and ensure sustainability. The priorities are aligned to our regional integration goals of security, peace, and political stability, deepening institutional frameworks and cross-border cooperation to ensure a stable environment for trade, investment, and human mobility. That's why I was excited the other day to read that the EU is going to support cross-border infrastructure. I hope we shall have a few more one-stop border posts. We have been requesting for regional markets at the borders. We have been looking at the possibility of refrigeration and storage facilities at the borders to help our people. I hope this will become reality. Trade and investment facilitation, accelerating the implementation of the EAC Common Market Protocol, addressing non-tariff barriers, and enhance the business environment through harmonized tax and customs procedures. On fiscal and monetary policy, it's to advance convergence of excise duty, VAT, and income tax regimes. Strengthening efforts to meet the EAC Monetary Union macroeconomic convergence criteria. Although I've been constantly at loggerheads with the bureaucracy on this issue of macroeconomic convergence criteria, because I don't think it's possible for all 8 countries to meet the criteria at the same time. In one of the last summits, we had agreed that those who are ready or are able should move together, because you cannot tell me that the economy of South Sudan will meet criteria the same as Kenya at the same time, so that we're able to move together. So I still take issue with that arrangement. And also I believe it was made when we were 3. I don't think it fits where we are 8. So I hope that our experts can look further at that issue. Laying groundwork for the EAC's Common Public Debt Management Framework under Article 9 of the Monetary Union Protocol, infrastructure and connectivity. There's been quite some work done in that area. For instance, we have a new bypass at the Soam-Uganda border, and another which shortens the distance and time spent between Uganda and Kenya, especially getting to Nairobi via Eldoret. We also have the Kasongo bypass in Tanzania, which shortens the journey from Arusha to Nairobi to Mombasa by over 200 kilometers. So that is also supporting our traders and business community to move quickly. Human development integration awareness, enhancing social and productive sectors, particularly in health, education, and skills development, building institutional capacity of EAC organs and institutions, and increasing citizen awareness about the benefits of integration. We have stepped up arrangements to sensitize the population. not one, about the issue of the NTBs. You don't know how annoying it is when you sit in a summit together with the heads of state. They agree, they sign, they take photographs, everybody is smiling. You go home happy. Then 2 days later, the Minister of Agriculture of Kenya imposes new restrictions. Then you have to say, pick up the phone, say, Madam, we were together in the meeting, what happened? We were together, you know, even the heads of state were there. He says, oh no, it is not me, it's the Minister of Agriculture. So what do you want me to do? You know, this is an argument by the heads of state. But these are some of the things we have to do. Now Tanzania, a very senior member of the community, a founding member, now saying they're going to tax everything that comes from the partner states. And yet we have already said that the goods made in all partner states should be treated like local goods. So now we're going to have to start the battle again to have this discussed and handled. Totally unnecessary. And but concerning the trade agreements, we had thought that we could take on Kenya on their separate agreements they've made with other countries, but we realized that Kenya is no longer an LDC. They've left us, so we're not in the same category. So they are doing their own things because their economy has progressed. So they've left us behind, and we can no longer hold them. We can no longer hold them. Otherwise, would be disadvantaging them. And I think we had asked the Minister of Finance to do some research for us. I hope they can give us the results one of these days. Across the partner states, the budgets have been aligned with the EAC priorities. These are they were presented at the same time, except Burundi, which was undergoing elections, and I hope they can do theirs soon. The fiscal deficit persists, ranging from 3%, -3 in Tanzania, -6.5 in Uganda. These are largely financed through increased borrowing. Uganda's public debt is expected to peak at 53% of GDP in 2025-26. Kenya's will be 7.8% of GDP. Again, I want to agree with Mr. Kagwa when he says that when you bring figures which talk about the whole community, we talk as if we are still 3, but we are actually 8. Decentralized Agency for Transparency, reporting harmonization and sustainable borrowing frameworks to avoid crowding and development financing. So as a council, we think that in this dialogue, we should develop actionable proposals for aligning fiscal, tax, and debt policies across the EAC, promote inclusive engagement of all sectors, women, youth, traders, SMEs in shaping these frameworks, enhance citizenship understanding of the budget and its regional implications through platforms like this. And the Council of Ministers remains committed to steer the region toward a resilient, integrated, and prosperous future. So I hope this dialogue will be a bridge between council decisions and citizen participation, between policy and practice, between national realities and our regional aspirations. Now, before I conclude, I want to say something about the tax amendments. I was excited to look at the amendments relating to gaming and betting, because a few years ago I was moving in one of my areas. Then the young people told me that there's something we want you to see. So I said, but I've just been in your sub-county, or the headquarters of your sub-county. They said, no, we want you to come to the trading center. There's something we want to show you. So I got out of my car, we started walking, walked a bit of a distance. I said, where are these children taking me? So they took me to a place and said, look at this machine. It was a gambling machine, hidden. Said, Madam, I want you to remove this thing and take it away. So why? Said, this has impoverished everybody. So this man here sold his land to be able to come and gamble. Now he's poor. This one sold his border. So I was shocked. Deep in the village. So, and they said every Friday, the Chinese come and collect money. That's what they told me, that every Friday, the Chinese come here and collect money. So I came back, I contacted my grandfather, the Minister of Finance. He said, Jaja, your grandchildren are suffering. Do you know about these Chinese? Do they pay tax? And then they said, Mama, there are even machines, we can take you and show where others are. And the areas that were described were deep, really deep. So, Mr. Kagwa, And you, Mama, who, my friend, Singuzi's friend, I think you better look for these machines. Because obviously, maybe you're looking at the casinos in Kampala. But the casinos in our trading centers. And they are having a free ride. No taxes, no nothing, just collect money. And our children are getting impoverished. So I hope you can really do some. So that's why I was excited when I looked at your proposed amendments. So find those fellows, either tax them or get them out or regulate them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Mwaso, for taxing your staff. You are unfinanced, there are things you need to find out. And they may not only be in that area, but in many other areas. So don't just go to that. That was a sample of where she went. We expect you to go everywhere and look for things of that nature. More so, as the politics is heating up, she's going to be taken into more areas. So you better be there before she's there. If she goes there ahead of you, that is not a good thing. We want to have photo sessions here, Right Honourable, with the people who have spoken so far and the panelists, just in case, because we don't want to hold the Right Honourable here. Anything may be calling on her desk. She's already told you the community is moving in different directions, and she's our representative there. We appreciate the time you've given to us. This is not since she's leaving, but who knows? Anything happens on her desk. I wouldn't want to be even within a mile of her desk. I hear what goes on there. Mr. Kafero, can you please bring the Right Honourable for the photo session? The table she's with, Allen Nasanga, Mr. Moses Kagwa, representing the PSST. I will Photoshop myself into the photo, but that will be later. We are going to increase the numbers. I think it's up here. Trademark East Africa, you need to be here. I'll add the panelists after this shot. Cameraman, I hope you are capturing that one. The panelists, please come. You know yourselves. If you are a panelist in this booklet that you have seen, or you were invited to be a panelist, we expect you to be here. I think that makes it all. Honourable members of Parliament, wait a minute. The honourable members of Parliament, this one may win some 70 votes. I don't know whether those are enough to turn the tide around. But certainly 70 is not a small contribution, depending on your battlegrounds, how are they looking like. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we still have the privilege of the Right Honourable First Deputy Prime Minister with us, but as I've said, depending on what communication she receives, she's free to leave at leisure. We are already privileged for the time that she has given to us. So we're going to have the panel, the first panel. starting on. I want to invite Madam Anna Namboze. Is it Namboze? Yes. The Country Director, Trademark East Africa for Uganda and South Sudan. You choose the best seat for yourself. I want to invite Madam Mariam Babu, Women's Cross-Border Traders Cooperative Society. Hope you are in the house, or a representative. This is advancing women's participation in regional trade. So let's proceed and we have somebody coming in online. I want to believe the IT team has already received that correspondence. That is Madame Annette Semwemba, the Deputy Secretary General in charge of Customs, Trade and Monetary Affairs, East African Community, who is going to be speaking on overcoming non-tariff barriers and enhancing intra-EAC trade. Because she's online and is really right at the heart of it, we want to give her the priority to speak first while the Right Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, First Deputy Prime Minister, is in the House. Has somebody interrupted our internet? Just tell her the floor is hers. Once she's on, she can start right away.
Thank you very much, moderator. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. We would also want to see you.
Thank you. Yes, I am on camera. I hope that I can be seen in the room. A very, very good morning to you, distinguished participants. Right Honorable First Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of EAC Affairs, Honorable Members of Parliament, for Yala and for National Member of Parliament, distinguished delegates, allow me to stand on the protocols already established. I bring you warm greetings from Arusha. I'm joining you from the heart and the center of where integration happens. And allow me to thank the government of Uganda and for Siatini for convening this post-budget dialogue. It's a really timely discussion. The subject that I am meant to speak about, the subject of NTBs, is one that is of great significance to the community. And we've already heard from some of the previous high-level speakers mention some of the challenges that the community is facing. We've heard that significant strides have been made in tariff liberalization. However, our intra-EAC trade remains low, between 13 to 15% compared to other blocs such as the ASEAN and the EU that are way above. And I took note of very, very important statistics from Mr. Kagwa that mentioned the GDP of US states of Norway being way above that of the EAC. I also wish to remind, and since this is also an event for awareness creation and sensitization, the treaty for the EAC is very, very specific in Article 75, Part 5 on NTBs. It says that except as may be provided for or permitted under this treaty, the partner states agree to remove all the existing non-tariff barriers on the importation into their territory of goods originating from other partner states, and thereafter to refrain from imposing any further non-tariff barriers. This is a very, very important pronouncement which all the partner states have signed to. We have the legislation in place for NTBs. The NTB Elimination Act of 2017 defines what the NTBs are. However, I must say that NTBs continue to impact negatively on the EAC region. From analysis that we have undertaken, NTBs undermine the EAC's economic integration, costing the region up to $10.3 billion in agriculture and manufacturing losses. And this also has an impact, of course, on poverty. The NTBs that we have observed in the region are around the non-harmonized activity and SPS measures and conformity procedures, discriminatory treatment, especially around rules of origin, leading to denial of preferential access, policy misalignment, non-implementation of EAC instruments, and I've just read from the treaty, issues around transport and logistics, road user charges, way bridges, roadblocks. All of these, from our analysis, lead to restrictive trade practices that have impacted on regional market share. I want to go a little bit into some of the top NTBs. For example, on rules of origin. These rules of origin disputes have led to restrictive criteria denying preferential treatment to EAC goods, discriminatory excise taxes, where we have higher taxes on EAC imports versus domestic goods, road user charges and logistics, ad hoc fees that are imposed by partner states, poor infrastructure, border delays, and such issues. What are some of the lessons that we have learned? Elimination of NTBs would boost trade by 52% from improved competitiveness, trade increase by $63.4 billion, and of course this would have an impact on poverty reduction. NTBs, I emphasize, are trade distorting. They add additional cost, they create trade loss, they have long-term effects on economic activities. Road user charges have dilapidating effects on regional economies. The limited capacity to analyze and interpret the effect of rules of origin and related NTBs impedes the growth and development of our manufacturing sector in particular. Their price disparities are rising because consumer prices for EAC goods in regional markets will tend to be higher than would be under non-discriminatory treatment. Investment distortion. Investors certainly want to be sure that the market will be open when they invest in the region. Excise tax also has a high impact, and thus the need for the non-discriminatory application. In the area of agro-processing, I will give some examples where a partner state A imposes a 13% tax on juices from another partner state for lacking local content. This definitely has had an impact on export decline. On manufacturing, I'll give an example where partner state C rejects cement imports from another partner state over clinker origin. This definitely has had an impact on the cement sector in the region. On agriculture, where one partner state bans poultry products from another partner state citing non-compliance with health and safety standards. All of these are some of the barriers, the challenges that we have experienced in the region. What are some of the remedies, actions that we see would really help in addressing NTB issues? The first issue that I want to highlight is the issue of trust. We need to advocate for a transparent and predictable trade environment across the region. This can only be fostered if there is trust among partner states. The legal and regulatory framework is sufficient. We do not need any new laws. We only need to implement the laws that we have had. We need to activate the dispute resolution mechanisms. And I say we because implementation happens at partner states. At the EAC, the Council of Ministers has put in place the framework that is needed. But I insist implementation happens at partner states. So in coordination with the ministries responsible for EAC, we have put in place the mechanisms for reporting. We have an NTB reporting mechanism that is very well structured and embedded within institutions within each partner state. They meet occasionally, not occasionally, they meet regularly, they meet on a quarterly basis, and they also meet every 6 months. On a quarterly basis, they engage to address the NTBs that have been reported, and through that mechanism, over 247 NTBs have been eliminated. However, the concern is they reoccur. They are eliminated and then transform and reoccur in another form. these are issues that we must continue to engage on and discuss. There's also need to work closely with various stakeholders in the partner states and also to enhance awareness among the citizens so that they can use the mechanisms for reporting, but that also each and every ministry, department, agency that is responsible for these NTBs is aware of the impact that whatever restriction they have put in place has on trade in the region. I would also propose from a regional point of view the need to undertake annual reviews of finance laws and tax amendments to identify and eliminate fees and charges affecting EAC goods. These are discussions that the Sectoral Council on Trade, Industry, Finance and Investment discuss often. However, after the discussions have been completed in a room, once partner states return, they ignore, I should say, what has been agreed and do as they would prefer within their respective partner states. And some pronouncements I think you will hear or have heard have been made in some of the budget statements of partner states that are impeding free movement of goods within the community. At the EAC, we've also started, rules of origin is one of the key issues that is of concern, so we've started a comprehensive review of the rules of origin. This process, we hope, is going to help us understand where the challenges lie with respect to impediments for movement of goods arising from rules of origin concerns. This is a discussion that is taking place at EAC level, and hopefully we will address the major concerns. There's also a need to reconsider national level levies, fees, and internal taxes inconsistent with EAC obligations. I would also want to emphasize the need to accelerate and fast-track domestic tax harmonization because, again, this is an issue, the result of deferring excise duties, VAT, leads also to challenges within the community on free movement of goods. Overall, if we can eliminate NTBs, of course, all regions are affected by NTBs, it's not just the EAC, but we must not sit back and relax. We must work collaboratively together to continue at a national level to comply with the protocols. There's a tendency by partner states to define goods from a partner state as non-originating, but all goods produced from the EAC are national goods of the EAC in very, very simple language. So the tendency to refer to them as foreign goods is against the provisions of the protocol and provisions must be complied with. Finally, it's very, very important to activate the dispute settlement mechanisms. There are dispute settlement mechanism regulations that have been formulated, and these are very, very important. Again, the onus is on the partner states to ratify the trade remedies, Article 24 of the Customs Union Protocol that is still pending. Again, this is with the partner states. If I can stop here, distinguished audience, if there are any particular issues on NTBs, I'm more than happy to take them, but also to respond to any questions with respect to policy formulation at the EAC as it relates to customs, to trade, and to monetary affairs. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Annette Semwemba, for reaching out to us from where you are. Right now, I want to invite my friend Anna Nambozo. This is Annette, this is Anna, so the continuation there is only fair that you'll come and give us your remark. And Madam Mariam Babu, hope you are in the house. You possibly want to come and join here on this panel. Then we'll have some few questions for the panelists and Mr. Kafero. There will be some questions that you may respond to at your level later on in case they come up. I don't want to direct any question to the Right Honorable First Deputy Prime Minister, but if you are a voter, you can ask a question. If you are not, then I will ask the question for you, and I've received one here, so you can write your question, because I need to look into it. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Right Honorable Prime Minister and distinguished members of Parliament, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I didn't expect this to be a remark setting, but again, it's an opportunity to be able to talk about what we have observed as the takeaways from this budget that would be facilitative of trade, and also, where areas where we think there may be some reconsideration. Let me see if I can get the other mic. Maybe better. Okay. Thank you very much. For those who may be well-traversed with the work of Trademark Africa, we are a trade facilitation entity that's largely donor-funded, but work with government, the regional economic communities, and the private sector as well. The government to create a better business environment, and then the private sector to improve their competitiveness. So in that regard, when we looked at the budget for 2025-2026, we are pleased that finally the government has taken into consideration that Uganda is one of the most innovative countries that we have in the world, most enterprising countries, and it's finally giving the businesses a chance to survive beyond the 3 years that they usually do. I know that our colleagues here from MOBS will tell you that usually after 3 years our businesses fall asleep and never wake up again. So now we have received a 3-year tax exemption on businesses. Of course, we would hope for more and for better opportunity, but it's a step in the right direction. And for that, we are grateful. We have a huge informal sector as Uganda. We know it is really the basis of our business community. And when you go and talk to the traders and the entire business community, it's simply because they say, why should I formalize? You can talk about getting the big government contracts, being able to export, really in a formalized way, even across the country. But then they say, but now I have to pay taxes. So this is a good incentive that will definitely help in growing the tax base as well. The other that, again, really touches closely to businesses is IFRIS. The penalty restructure is very, very welcome. Before, the penalty was high at 6 million, but at least now it has been revised in this budget to just double of the tax that is owed. So again, this is very welcome because we do not want the taxman to really be penalizing businesses. They should be giving them an environment that they can be able to operate and to survive. The third issue that we saw that again helps with the harmonization across all government institutions is the fact that now the national identification number will be utilized for individuals to be recognized even as they are teen, and for businesses their birth number at the Uganda Registration Services Bureau, their company number will be recognized all through. It helps to have a system, especially in the stage of digitization, where you're recognized by one number. A lot of the countries that are more modern or upscale to us have been doing this for years. You find a person has a social security number and they use that all through. But here, if you're a business, one time you have a different number at your RSB, the next day you get to KCCA, you have a different COIL number, the next day you go to register somewhere else, it's a different number at the local government. So it brings in a lot of confusion. It makes it difficult to trace who is who. Is it the same person? Is it the same Anna numbers that has this number and their ID that has a different number at the local government, and so on and so forth. So this especially will help with digitization and also with being able to trace businesses and also individuals across the country. The stamp duty exemptions that have been introduced on agreements and mortgage deeds is also another very welcome opportunity. Of course, for every agreement where you have to pay stamp duty, especially looking at, and the bigger businesses may be used to it, but just think about the bottom line. Over 70% of Uganda's businesses are small, medium-scale enterprises. It is punitive. Even when you're going to get a mortgage, you're only getting a mortgage because you do not have the funds to be able to complete your business transaction. But even when you would go to get the mortgage before, you'd have to pay a certain percentage of it, again, in terms of taxes. So this is, again, very facilitative of businesses. We are very happy that this move has been made. In the same regard, we see that these incentives, of course, are very well aligned to encouraging the business community to participate in what we've just talked about, the East African Customs Union and also the African Continental Free Trade Area, because the SMEs have to be able to participate and to survive. Looking at also things, beyond the taxes, when you're looking at this year's budget, Mr. Kagwa from MOFPED talked about the rail, the standard gauge railway. We are very excited about that, and I believe with the support of the Islamic Bank, also the Naivasha-Malabar corridor has been taken care of. On my end, of course, the SGR from Malabar to Kampala is needed yesterday, and we are also very glad to see that the government continues to commit to the Gulu Tororo line, which is again from Malabar to Gulu. You may be aware that with Trademark Africa, Uganda Railway Corporation, Ministry of Works and the URA, we established a Gulu Logistics Hub, and this hub was completed in 2023. It's already operational, URA is set, and we do have trucks that go there for verification and clearances, also for transshipment. But a lot of this business case was regarding the rail. So the fact that the railway has not yet been done up to Gulu, the hub is really being underutilized. So it would be, the budget speech commits to February 2026, and we're looking forward to that being met. So just going on a few points that I think we need to be able to look at again. The export levies. The export levies that have been introduced on maize bran, on wheat bran, on cotton cake, and then, of course, the hides and skin under the Amendment Act as well. These, of course, the spirit of this is to make sure that the local industry has enough stock. But we are thinking it may be a bit premature because government has not really given us viable options. I think this would be much needed where the infrastructure has been established, where the industries are already established, and then you can take the stock. But right now, the situation we foresee is once you add tax to our hide and skin and to our wheat bran, that means the business person, the exporter, is also going to add that tax at their end price. That means when we go to the East African community and beyond, our products is going to be more expensive. So with that expense, it's going to make us less competitive. That is one. Two, even for, again, the SMEs, we may not be able to absorb this additional cost. So really, we're feeling like government should quickly really help to incentivize and work on these value chains, ensure that there's actually industries that are going to be able to take on these. And then, in the same spirit, of course, we've seen an increase on the imports for home use. So there's a charge that has now been borne, again, that I think has been done by some other countries like Kenya to be able to promote buying Uganda. But again, it's an extra cost. So that all means that every business, every private person will have to bear this cost in the end price. So I'd like to stop there for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will leave you with a question that is a bit political, but because you have introduced the politics embedded within the taxation. Very good, we are doing all the infrastructure, the railways are going to run all over the place. But with these kinds of remarks that you have ended with, will there be business on those roads, on those rails, to make the value come out of them? Just take note of that question and pack it. It was intended for the Right Honorable First Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister for East African Affairs, but it's a technical question before we bring the politics of it to you later on. Those of you who are taking her notes, please, when she's back, make sure it is something that we need to be looking into. Because if you do these things, and then I hear the tariff here, a tariff there, I may find it easier not to use the standard gauge railway and instead import my things from China and they come by air. Then what is the standard gauge railway about? These are complications that we need to be addressing. I don't know whether Madam Diana Mchoge is online and ready to be received. I want to receive, she's in the second panel, but because of TV, NTV gave us some good time, but they have a 1 o'clock news, breaking news that they want to tell the rest of the world out of here. So I want to bring in some members of the second panel to come in here, and then prepare your questions. We'll be asking all those questions in the same direction. Is she ready? And you're going to have more people
Hello, can you hear me?
Please, my other panelists, come and sit here. Anna here wants some company. There is a lady on your program, but there is a man in the room. So sometimes women are the other word of women. It's women, but women sometimes know how to double check and take the slots. I'll also have Mr. Kagwa. You will be coming back here only for questions. You have already told us, but please come and take your seat. You'll be having some questions. Hilda Tumuhe, I don't know where you are. You may want to come and give Anna here some company. I only see some men surrounding her. She may want to have some company. We are on air with Diana Mchoge, who is a Policy Research and Advocacy Officer, African Forum and Network on Debt and Development. That is AfroDad, I guess. I was just in Harare for that mission. I sit on the board of AfroDad, so privileged to introduce to you one of my own who works for us on matters of debt and development. Diana Mchoge, please. IT team, bring her on board.
Very much want to be part of this meeting, and we really appreciate the invitation. So good morning or good afternoon to Honorable Minister who is present. Good afternoon to you. So I'll just go right into the presentation, which will cover elements of debt as per the thematic area of discussion on fiscal and debt policy harmonization. But I will also focus my presentation on the SADC Parliamentary Finance Management Model Law, which can be a learning point for the East Africa community. So very quickly, in terms of the debt context, and the previous speaker has actually touched on this, in terms of the debt levels that are being experienced by the East African countries. And we know that Kenya is actually in debt distress. Uganda continues to have sustainable to in the medium term, but will also at high risk of debt distress. And then Rwanda is sustainable with a moderate risk at high risk of debt distress. And the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, remains at moderate risk of debt distress. Recover because of oil, but also has a moderate risk to high risk of distress. So this is just the context in terms of how our countries are doing. And then also the debt actually crowds out investment in critical sectors such as health, education, and social protection. And we know that countries are spending more in terms of servicing their debt as opposed to social sector servicing, as much as 25 times more servicing their debt over health. And then we also have increased borrowing from external sources, which has increased risks of currency depreciation. And then public debt has led to crowding out of private investment in the regions, because when governments borrow heavily to finance their expenditure, they tend to crowd out private investment by increasing interest rates. And then high interest in debt levels has led to downgrading of majority of East Africa community members' credit rating. And this has been seen with Rwanda, which was downgraded recently, reducing its access to international capital markets. And we also have the example of Kenya, where recently Kenya was downgraded, and it also led to Kenya being crowded out of capital markets. So in terms of the SADC Parliamentary Forum model law, just to give us an overview, it actually serves as a benchmark and a guiding legal instrument for national parliaments to reinforce their domestic legal framework on public finance management. And the model law was adopted during the 51st Plenary Assembly of the SADC Parliamentary Forum, which was in 2022. And the overarching objective is to ensure that national parliaments in SADC are enabled to conduct their legislative, budgetary, and oversight functions for public finance management in a way that is transparent, efficient, and responsive to the needs of SADC citizens. So once again, just sharing on what the SADC member states or the SADC community, the need that they had to be able to come up with a model law that actually governs public finance management, to be able to efficiently manage their resources, prudently manage their debt, and efficiently raise taxes within the region. So this is a learning point for EAC. In terms of public debt management, the model law provides for legally binding debt ceiling for the different SADC countries, a public debt strategy, an annual debt statement that should be tabled in the different parliaments within the SADC member states, and scrutiny of borrowing decisions. Additionally, the model law looks at improving the efficiencies of tax collection and spending tax revenues, setting legislative benchmarks in terms of spending and managing public finance, and then looking at aspects of preventing money laundering, funding terrorism, and preventing illicit financial flows. And then an importance, again, the significance of the model law is also in terms of revenue generation and mobilizing of revenue to be able to ensure governments are self-sustainable, good public financial management to reduce poverty, and also ensure prudent management of service delivery, and then also preventing corruption and facilitating compliance to trade laws, and then ideal investment climate to close the door for fraud, corruption, and disincentives for investment, and of course ensuring transparency and accountability in terms of public finance management. So in terms of the role of Parliament, which is very important, within the model public finance management law, they put the role of Parliament in terms of overseeing and controlling public finance management processes by having committee hearings and inquiries, having plenary questions and debates, having written and oral questions, providing ministerial statements, and also requires the Auditor General or other audit bodies to prepare and submit reports on actual or alleged financial irregularities. And in terms of borrowing, the model law provides for the Public Accounts Committee to publish and maintain a public debt parliamentary oversight strategy that will ensure monitoring the accrual of public debt, overseeing the management and servicing of public debt, and making recommendations for the reduction and control of public debt. So this is very important because it just provides an overview for countries within SADC to be able to manage their debts prudently by making those provisions. So just to also let us know that the model law is not binding in any way. It's used as a mirror by the SADC countries to be able to compare their national public finance management laws with what is contained in the model law. So looking at how do their public debt management laws or how do their public finance management laws regarding debt compared to what the model law provides for, and adapting some of those provisions to the national legislation. Of course, there have been challenges in terms of implementation of this, And one of them has been the issue of sovereignty in terms of questioning the model law, whether it overrules the national PFM legislation. And as I've explained, it does not do that. It provides guidance and also provides a picture or a mirror image of what countries can be able to do to improve their national public finance management systems. And then also there's been a challenge of low absorption by member states within SADC, but the SADC Parliamentary Forum has been working very hard to ensure creation within parliament so that they can be able to actually start domesticating principles of the model law in their national legislation. So there's a lot of civic education that's going on, and this also requires political will from the member states to be able to implement the provisions of the model law. So what does this mean for the East Africa community? It's very important, and we are talking about regional integration, for the countries to come together and think about possibly having a model law on public finance management, which can actually touch on issues of debt. As we've seen, the countries within the EAC are struggling in terms of management of debt. And we do know that in the respective countries, we do have the different parliamentary committees that look into public finance management. But it's important if the region can consider what the SADC region did, having a model law for the entire region that will be able to provide oversight in terms of the role of parliament, but also give guiding principles in terms of how the countries can manage their debt. And as you've seen within the model law, they do propose having a ceiling for the region. I understand that the East Africa community does have a debt ceiling that countries should keep to, be further strengthened by putting it, leave it there, and I look forward.
We seem to have lost out Diana, but she will be back. If you have any questions for her, we'll reach out. I think it is our internet problem, but these are the issues of trademark. East Africa to keep flagging to us that infrastructure matters, whatever it is critical. I want to invite the representative of Madame Maris Wanyera, who is the Acting Director, Debt and Cash Management at the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. He will introduce himself. Sometimes when people change, they change titles. And so please go ahead and introduce yourself ably well so that people know everything. Since you haven't resigned from government, you're not headed for Parliament. And I want to recognize the Honorable Members of Parliament who are with us, Honorable Hanifa Nabukera, Mukono District. You may want to wave at these voters. Some of them, who knows, they know somebody in that constituency who matters to us. Honorable Stella Apolot Isodo, Woman MP Ngora District. We are privileged to have you here. We know the heat is elsewhere, so we really can't take this for granted for you to find time for us. And Honorable Serikali Joel Mtwetwe Chankwanzi District. You are welcome. And of course, the ELA who will be stepping in shortly. My friend, you introduce yourself and then you give us some 5 minutes or so of the gist of the matter, then we can continue.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muhumuza. My name is Paul Oktoy. I'm a Commissioner for Debt Policy and Issuance at the Ministry of Finance. I am standing in for the Acting Director, Debt and Cash Policy at the Ministry of Finance, who is not able to be with us here. Now, debt is a topic that is very difficult to discuss. On one hand, the citizens want services, and on the other hand, the citizens don't want to pay taxes, some of them, and then on the other hand, some people don't want debts, but they want to drive on first-class roads. So it's a topic that normally draws a lot of attention. Back to the topic on leveraging debt for inclusive growth. all member countries within the EAC try as much as possible to subscribe to the East African macroeconomic convergence criteria that provides that for debt thresholds, for example, not exceeding 50% of GDP, aspects of borrowing and deficits, including grants not exceeding 3% of GDP and deficits exceeding grants not exceeding 6% of GDP. Now, over time, because of increased spending, the deficit has been rising across the region. But what is critical is that this deficit has been rising on account of the need to finance critical game-changing infrastructure projects that are expected to drive economic growth around the region, including economic investments around economic corridors, including investments in opportunities and drivers of the economy. Name it: energy, transport, social services, human capital development, and so forth. Now, also, the EAC countries, including Uganda, have now, because of the pressures, diversified the debt sources. Traditionally, we used to have concessional borrowing or financing from the likes of the World Bank, African Development Bank, the Islamic funds, and the IMF windows. But because of the pressures, we have gone into non-concessional financing, commercial financing, and domestic borrowing. And so this has seen generally an increase in domestic borrowing, largely across the region. But the countries are trying as much as possible to ensure that this is sustainable. I'm glad to note that our borrowing is still sustainable, so our debt is sustainable. One of the previous speakers actually alluded to this, and this attests to the prudent debt management strategy that government is implementing. Now, a number of instruments in terms of harmonization along the region have been put in place. For example, harmonized reporting. This is in place, and IMF has been supporting in actually improving the reporting frequency on the different aspects. There are still delays in terms of the timeliness of reporting across the region, but at least most of the countries have endeavored to make sure that the reporting is harmonized. If you go to our website, for example, of Ministry of Finance, you'll always get up-to-date debt reports, statistics. Although the quarterly statistical bulletin that we do has a lag of about 2.5 months due to other aspects that we normally do in terms of harmonizing with BOU and so forth. Now, the investments that government is doing in line with the NDP that is ending, the new NDP that is operationalizing the 10-fold growth strategy, are anchored around the ATMs that the PSST talked to. Now, these investments are investments with the higher, in areas of higher return on investment. For example, if we invest borrowed funds in energy, recent studies have indicated that by you increasing rural electrification or increasing connectivity and access, you are able to trigger growth and welfare by about 40%. Now, that's where government is investing. We're investing in energy, we're investing in transport, the SGR, and so forth. And what we are trying to do is now to make sure that, one, we look for alternative sources of financing beyond, for example, the traditional funding or windows, but also get into international bonds. In the next 2 quarters in the new financial year, we will be mobilizing, for example, $405 million as government counterpart financing, but this time through issuing an Islamic bond, or what is called a sukuk bond. So most of the projects the borrowing that we are going to do will be tagged to those critical projects. In the future, we'll also be issuing other bonds such as the Panda bonds, infrastructure bonds, including the one of Japan, Samurai bond. But this will all be tagged to particular projects. Now, even within the concessional windows, there are still opportunities. What we do, for example, in Uganda, we have the policy performance actions that we agree with the World Bank. For the year ending, we performed well, and so we're able to attract additional quota in the pot. So we are now setting for the next calendar year. So you can still leverage some additional concessional financing by making sure that you meet certain agreed upon policy actions. And that is what we are trying to make sure we leverage to be able to try to optimize the windows that are within still the concessional side, notwithstanding the challenges of still in project implementation of undisbursed loans that are a result of certain weaknesses that we had initially, but now those have been addressed regarding entry of projects and financing of projects, the readiness of projects. Now that is being addressed, including aspects of land acquisition and so forth. There are some risks, however, such as global risks that come on and off. Remember COVID, when we got out of COVID, the Russia-Ukraine war, and then of recent, that war in the Middle East. All these pose shocks to the financing that we actually plan for. For example, our debt is, by the end of the year, is projected to be at this fiscal year at 51.2%. But this was because the programmed borrowing during COVID was scaled down because of certain aspects, the certain operations that could not move on in government. So of course our debt will move slightly above the East African macroeconomic convergence criteria, but that is expected over the medium term to normalize to the normal acceptable thresholds within our debt management strategy. Now, there are risks that are associated with debt. For example, foreign exchange risks. And what we are doing with that is that we have started doing what we call foreign exchange hedging. So through that, you're able to shift some of the risks that could actually increase your costs, either in terms of paying debt or in terms of borrowing, by working around aspects of the international offer rates, the LIBOR, the London Interbank Offer Rate, the Euribor, the European Interbank Offer Rate, and the SOFR. Now, we do some kind of hedging, and it has helped us in some of the aspects. I think around Karuma, we have already managed to save some amount of money as a result of that. That would have been actually a loss to us as a government. So, some opportunities, we need to continue with the harmonization of debt recording and the reporting. We need to look at the aspects of introducing innovative solutions just locally. Ministry of Finance is planning to start what we call the Okusevinga project. We want Ugandans, wherever they are, to be able to invest in securities through their mobile phones. That will enable us to accumulate quite substantial amounts of money that will then exert a downward pressure on the interest rates in the domestic market. So soon, by the end of second quarter, we shall have launched this product. So Ugandans should be able to open, to be able to save in the securities market. And that should be able to leverage for us additional financing at relatively lower rates. I thank you. I want to stop here.
Thank you very much. I hope Okusaving will not include Bafere. They move from our mobile phones to their own Kusavinga. But Bank of Uganda has taken care of those fellows. I hope you don't hear too many of them anymore. That's what governments do. I want also to recognize my all-time friend, Honorable Seungu, MP for Kalungu County, is in the house. Honorable, welcome. Where you are going, we can only offer you prayers. We are not voters in that space. So, but we will give you prayers. You've done us well as a country, and I want to believe your people are happy with you. Honorable Yovan Adrico, MP for Vura County, Arua District, is in the House. These are some of the investments we need to do every time I look at that road going to Arua, but also there is the Pakwach Bridge itself. The reason I'm raising this is Uganda exports most to Kenya and then to DRC and South Sudan. These are the routes. So if we can't invest in those routes, I don't know what risks we need to add into the risks you have listed for us. Good risks, foreign exchange risks. We know the coffee prices haven't behaved well of late. Those are some foreign exchange risks that actually may come out there. We are going to issue a Sukuk bond in the Middle East. Thank God the ceasefire is holding. I don't know whether that would have affected us. These are things we need to keep monitoring. Yesterday, NATO closed a meeting where they said now the Europeans must meet their own security concerns. 5% of their GDP must go to security. That means less of official development assistance. That means less of grants, which grants are key drivers in our budget and in our development agenda. So this meeting is really sitting live in the action. We must be in the VAR, but the action is happening right where you are. Take this meeting seriously. We'll have one more panelists, and then we'll open up this discussion to you. Please write down your questions, be ready to ask them. The answers will come. If they don't come, we'll make sure they come. Madam Hilda, you have the floor. You will be...
Yeah.
Hilda Tumuhe is policy analyst, debt and aid at Siatini, and she's going to be talking to us on advocating for debt convergence secretariat and the EAC, a CSO perspective. CSO is civil society organization, just for clarity and to be sure.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mhumza, and the rest of the panelists. I'm glad to be here, and I'll just expound and also give a civil society perspective on what we see, especially on matters concerning public debt management in the EAC. So when we look at the EAMO protocol, that is the East African Monetary Union protocol. But clearly, first going back to the common market protocol, for us to be able to gain from the common market protocol, at least we should be able to attain macroeconomic convergence. And when you look at some of the key indicators under here, we have something on public debt that requires us to maintain our public debt at 50% of GDP, but in net value terms. And critically, it is important to note that, of course, some EAC partner states have been doing well over the years. We're glad of Uganda. This has been maintained. But we see in the coming period, I think in the current budget, it's clear that he has also alluded to it, that this will, like, the nominal debt to GDP will go beyond. Yeah, but of course, the present value terms, our debt to GDP will still be within the macroeconomic convergence. But it is important to note that some states have diverged from some of these principles. When you look at a state like Kenya, I think they even went ahead to set up like a debt ceiling, of about 55%. That is not in line with this. So I think the Right Honorable Kadaga mentioned it, that it is important to ask questions around whether we can actually converge, whether all the partner states can converge within a period of 3 years. This could be letting us behind. But importantly is on Article 9, I want us to critically look at Article 9 of the EAMO protocol that requires us to harmonize public debt management. And while he notes that most partner states are reporting on debt, but it is important to note that most of them, actually all, have not seen current debt statistics being reported in a timely manner. Say, for instance, that particular provision in the EAMO protocol requires us to have like debt statistical bulletins, quarterly statistical bulletins, and even our own ministry, I don't think we have it, yes, but does it come out on time? You noted that there is a time lag of 2.5 months. So for us to critically follow through the debt conversation, public debt comes in to replace when we don't have enough revenues raised from the revenue authorities. Of course, we have to borrow, and we are not against borrowing, but this is our money as citizens, and we need to, it's more of a social contract. We need to track public debt management. But it is also critical to note that there are several aspects. So for instance, when it comes to several indicators in the debt management frameworks, I think I have not seen a common debt management framework across the EAC, but I can stand to be corrected. But I'll give a case in point, the one for Uganda, the public debt management framework. There is a new one in place, I think from last financial year. And we see several of the indicators that are clearly spelled out here are not on track. Say, for instance, the domestic debt to revenue, ratios. Even in the previous framework, this was at about 12%, that our domestic borrowing to revenue should not exceed 12.5%. But at the end of the public debt management framework period in 2022-23, this was at about 18.5%. This critically means that for every shilling we are collecting in domestic revenue, 18 shillings are going to pay domestic debt. While there has been an ongoing conversation from Ministry of Finance telling us that domestic borrowing is not really crowding out the private sector, for us as civil society, would like to diverge a bit from that. Why? Because we critically note that sometimes there is no bank that is willing to lend Hilda when there is government of Uganda that is going to borrow. You're a reliable borrower, and for sure you will pay. So it means that the cost of credit will actually will be affected despite the magnitude, So it is important for our government to cap on this, and this has been the same aspect across the EAC. When you look at Kenya, they are also highly relying on domestic borrowing. Of course, we are cognizant of the fact that when you look at the global financial architecture, the cost of borrowing has been high. Yeah, we acknowledge that. But it goes back to the question of whether it's really sustainable in the long term for us to keep on taking on these expensive loans. So another issue around public debt management in the EAC that we critically note that we need a conversation around is on the issue of the issue of the quality of projects that we borrow for. It goes back to public investment management. How are we managing these? And I think while we note that some partner states, Uganda, Kenya, have set up what we call the public investment management systems, but we critically note that there are still so many gaps when it comes to project implementation. While this has improved over the years, I think Uganda has even a public investment management unit, yeah. And we've seen increasingly improvement in project management, but we still see problems around when it comes to project implementation. We still see the quality, the value for money. We are not seeing the required dividends coming up. Why? One, probably you took on these projects when they are not ready. I think Auditor General over the years has also alluded to this. You're talking about the issues of right of way. I think the other week we had a dialogue on state of the economy, whereby we critically realized that some ongoing projects, infrastructure projects currently are still facing certain challenges like those. I think one of our panelists from the World Bank pointed us to projects like the Kampala Expressway. Some of these are still taking long to set off, yet the government still pays commitment fees. So it goes back to the question of value for money. What we need as civil society is if you're borrowing on our behalf as citizens, even our unborn babies will have to pay this debt. So it is critical to have a harmonized framework on debt management such that we can benefit from the EAC at large. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Hilda. That is the voice on behalf of the people. Some people have taken it to another level. A senator in Kenya has 2 chambers like America, has actually sued government for what they call odious debt, that the government borrowed on a wrong premise for the citizens. So these matters are that serious, and this is within the EAC. I don't know who next in Uganda may come in. Is there any other honorable member of parliament I have not recognized? Please let your details come to me before NTV leaves us, because I know it reaches your constituency. They need to know you are working for them while you go back there. But this is our meeting, ladies and gentlemen. I want to see a few hands. If you have questions, they may be directed to any of the panelists here. They may be directed to the people who spoke earlier. Alan Nasanga is still with us from the Revenue Authority. Kafero is there, and any of the other people. But even if you have nobody to direct any question to, just ask it. We will find a way of sorting it out here or later. Yes, I have one hand there. I have another second hand, a third hand, number 4 and number 5. So we have number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5. I hope I don't get to number 7. That sometimes walks somebody into State House. Okay, number 6. We'll first hold it there, and then we'll see whether we have to enter State House.
Thank you so much, Moderator Emmanuel Ongierto Obonyo, the MP for Jonam in Pakwach District. 2 things I want to bring forward, particularly to our friend from the Ministry of Finance. And one of them is actually related to what the Minister of Finance stated when he was reading the budget. And he stated, and everybody knows, that every time one of the key successes we talk about is that all our major border points are connected with tarmac. I don't know what definition you have for Goli, which is in Nebi. And actually the moderator, you remember you talked about that connectivity to Congo, and for us, Goli is the main one. And then there is one in Padea, which is in Zombo. And I can tell you from Nebi town, going upwards, it's terrible. The road there is terrible. And I can say, you know, we feel extremely bad when people talk about those successes, and this particular one remains the way it is. It's so bad for us. That is one. Then number 2, talk about the railways. And I keep hearing every time people talk about the railways, they want to stop in Gulu. But you know, the meter gauge originally would go up to Pakwach. And these days when people are talking about the railways, they stop in Gulu. And we are asking ourselves again, what is happening? So please, Ministry of Finance, you need to look at that. Thank you. Those were my 2 areas of concern.
Very vital areas. The ministry is represented by 2 people here plus others. Right on the same table. Let's clear that table. And then we'll cross over to this table.
Thank you, Moderator. I'm Maituka Isaac Joaquino. I'm the Member of Parliament for Upper Madi County, West Nile Sub-Region. My concerns go to Ministry of Finance, and when we look at the economic drivers identified by Ministry of Finance, we have agro-industrialization, we have tourism development, we have mineral development, science and technology. But I want to address my issue to agro-industrialization, because now we have PDM, which is based on